All right, welcome everyone to our mastermind on leading through crisis. And in case you don't know, I'm Tom Ray, and I'll be your host and facilitator through this discussion based on the teaching by John Maxwell, Leading Through Crisis. So it's going to be fantastic tonight, and I look forward to doing this with you guys. But before we do, I'd like to have everyone introduce yourselves, and then along with that, I always like to start off whatever we do with an attitude of gratitude. So maybe share something that you're thankful for. Okay? So, James, why don't we start with you?
Attitude of gratitude. I thank God for I do thank God for this time, not because I want people to die. I regret that. I feel for them, but our family has had such a time of enrichment. No one in my household is afraid or scared. That doesn't mean we don't take caution, but we are thankful for this time of closeness. We are thankful that even our hub family is still doing the exact same thing they would be doing, other than that we're doing stuff like this. And so God is moving. I believe God is fertilizing a spiritual ground like we've never seen before in the midst of all of this. What the devil means for harm and bad, but God will use for good. So I am grateful.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks for sharing. Michael.
Oh, so what am I grateful for? Well, I'm grateful that I haven't caught this yet. I hope I don't. And my life is turning around. I'm in a much better place than I was a few months ago.
That's awesome.
I recently became unmarried.
Gotcha.
And I'm in a better place mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. What more could you ask for?
Right on. Thanks for sharing, Michael. Nick.
Yeah, hi guys. I'm Nick Bork, and I pastor a church up in Rochester called Heart of the Hills Christian Church, about 50 people. I'm thankful for the time off. I'll tell you, I work a day job, and then I help my wife with her cleaning company, and then I pastor.
Wow.
So it's like, nonstop all the time. And I got laid off from my day job back in, the third week in April. And man, have I rested and felt a new creativity come back. And I'm very thankful for that. Thankful that we're healthy at our house. And, so yeah, I'm very thankful. Yeah, praise God.
Great.
Rest and renewal.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. I'm thankful myself that we are also all healthy. My wife especially has been going through some severe sickness and all of that, but she's doing well, and we're all doing well here. So I'm very thankful for that. So, all right. So I just want to point out to you as we get ready to start this discussion, I have included the participants guide. It's there in the chat section for you to download and follow along tonight. And then the way this will work is I'm going to share a little teaching from John Maxwell, about 7 minutes on the topic of leading through crisis, and then we'll follow along in the participation guide, and it's going to be fantastic. Okay.
All right.
So I'm going to mute your microphones for now, so we don't get any background noise.
Yeah, just
And
one thing real quick.
yes,
I don't see that participation guide.
it's in the chat section. Let me try sending it directly to you.
Okay. I mean, I don't know whether or not it's just a problem on my end, but
Interesting. It won't even let me share it with you.
I've got
It won't let me share it with you specifically.
oh,
Let me see. It may be the way that you are connected to us.
oh,
because I don't even see where I can message you directly. So
we can proceed. I'll deal with it.
yeah, so what I'll do is once we get started, I'll share my screen and bring it up for us to help us follow along with. Okay?
I got it. Yep.
You got it though. Okay, good. Good. All right, so I'm going to share this teaching with, well, I actually changed some things around when I was searching for that information for Michael there. So just a second.
Yeah, little old troublemaker. That's me.
It's all good.
Well, it happened for the Ford Motor Company, and in this Forbes article, it then put three things on the advantages of a crisis. And I give this to you quickly because this is in the business field. I'm getting ready to come to you in the personal way, so stay right with me. Here's what Forbes said. First of all, a crisis changes the balance of risk and reward. And they so clearly wrote the fact that during normal circumstances and situations, we don't risk a lot. We enjoy where we are, and the tendency always is for us to stay put, not make a lot of changes. And the fear of failure overrules the risk issue. So we basically stay the same. But what happens is that in a crisis, all of a sudden it helps us realize that we have to change. All of a sudden, what was kind of optional, should we change, becomes a command. We have to change. Why? Because we're in deep weeds. And so basically Forbes was saying if you have a business, if you have a team, whatever, that there are perhaps some things in your life that you've just held pat that you should have let go a long time ago, and you're going to risk more during a crisis. And they said that was good. Number two, and I love this because it's so true, a crisis increases our focus. You see, every organization has what I would call competing priorities and conflicting priorities. Some priorities that just conflict with where you're really wanting to go, and then you have some that internally compete with what you're trying to accomplish. And so what happens is there's a lot of activity in an organization that isn't necessarily accomplishment. But what does a crisis do? We immediately begin to eliminate all of the things that are not totally essential in our business. In other words, we begin to cut. We begin to look and say, what do I have to have versus what was nice to have? And that's happening right now. I mean, it's happening everywhere over America. People are looking and they're reevaluating. And what they're doing is that this crisis is causing me. I mean, I could give you a lot of personal examples in my life that I'm just saying, okay, I now have to focus on not what is wonderful, what is nice, what I would like to be included in. I have to focus on one thing, what's essential. Everything else falls aside. There's a terrific benefit in business when you begin to get rid of conflicting or competing priorities. Major difference. And say, okay, we've just got to stay with the main thing. We got to make the main thing, like Covey says, the main thing. So, as Forbes was pointing out so good, it basically a crisis gets us to take more risk. Crisis increases our focus. And number three, what it does is it identifies leaders. Because what do leaders do during a crisis? They stand up and they stand out. You see, you can't manage your way out of a crisis. You have to lead your way. If you could manage your way, there would be small incremental changes that you can control and feel comfortable with that you would begin to allow in your life that would get you out of the issue. And that isn't going to get you out of a crisis. All of a sudden, you've got to have somebody stand up and say, wait, I'm going to lead my way out. I'm going to get creative in my thinking. I'm going to get bold in my decision making. Wow. Now, here's what I want you to see in business or in your personal life. Einstein was right. It's in the middle of the difficulty where the opportunity begins to show itself. I could give you all kinds of examples of what I can sense as a leader that's beginning to happen. Now, I don't have the back end. I don't have the whole story. I'm looking at a picture that's not complete. But let me just give you an example. What's happened in the education world? Well, what's happened in the education world is all the kids got home. Not only in elementary and high school, but universities, colleges, sent the kids home. We got to have our social distancing. And by the way, I think that was a very wise decision. I think right now, social distancing is probably the most important thing we can do to cut this out and probably, hopefully, get some answers and move on with our life. But now, so what are the kids doing? Online classes. Kids, millions of kids right now, are on online courses. Now, online courses, that's not new. That's been around for about 12, 15 years. And there has been a slow, steady increase of students taking online courses. But now they all have to do it. And here's what's going to happen. There are kids who have never taken an online course, and they're going to do that, and then they're going to look at themselves and say, wait a minute, I'm home. I can be in surroundings that are familiar to me. I don't have to go back to college if I don't want to. I can get a degree online. Now, I'm not advocating that. I'm just saying I can guarantee you, I promise you, that there are a bunch of students that are all of a sudden going to see that there's another way to get their education. I'm not even saying it's a better way, but I'm just saying crisis causes change. And I will tell you, that steady increase in online kind of classes, after this, it's going to be like that. It's just going to increase. Why? Because a lot of kids who have never done it before tested it and said, oh, this kind of works for me. I think in the business community, when people are working from home, I think it's going to change the work environment. I really do. I'm not saying it's pro or con. It doesn't matter. What I'm wanting you to see is that crisis causes you and I to make changes that we would never make if we didn't have the crisis. The way I prefer it is to say crisis bumps us out of our comfort zone into our creative zone. That's a great statement. Crisis bumps us. In fact, if I don't get the bump, I won't get out of my comfort zone. It's the bump that gets me out of my comfort zone into the creative zone. Okay, now that's business. Okay, so for you that have organizations, teams, companies, whatever, hopefully that helps you. The rest of this lesson today and the lesson tomorrow is going to be in a very personal way from me to you. And it's going to be applicable to you personally. It's going to be applicable to your family. It's going to be applicable to all of your friends. But it's going to be just one-on-one. And I'm going to just tell you, there are some major advantages that we're going to receive out of the adversity that we're now going through. And by the way, one more thought. When we're in the middle of the crisis, where the opportunity, as Einstein says, there are two kinds of people. In the middle of the crisis, there are some people who are basically saying, how long will this last? We're all asking that, by the way. How long will this last? But there's a higher level of person who is saying, while I'm in it, how can I get better? How can I improve? What can I learn? How can I make this a stepping stone instead of a stumbling block?
That was some good information, wasn't it? All right, I'm going to unmute your microphones. Is everybody there? So, everybody caught that video, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Good,
yeah.
good. So last week we talked about looking beyond fear to hope, and tonight we're talking about the advantages of crisis, as John was talking about. Now, John, he talked about the schools and the kids learning and all of that, and I heard just a little while ago on the news that kids in the Detroit school system are being sent laptops and given free internet so that they can all do school online. So, you know, it's true. We're in a different time and season of how we do things. So things are different, that's for sure. So let me bring the book up for us, if I can, just a moment. Let's see. I want to share this with you. See what's it called. Okay, now let me share my screen so I can pull that up for us. And is this
I just want to say.
one? Okay, everybody can see that?
Yep.
Yep.
Good. So here we are, the advantages of a crisis. So in this second part of the lesson, he talks about some advantages leaders have during a crisis. And this is leaders in any field, whether, pastor like Nick and James here, or, someone in the business field. Leadership is leadership. And it goes on, while no one wants a crisis, the way conditions change for the leader and their people produce three distinctive advantages that, when harnessed, create opportunity that would have otherwise remained hidden. So John brings up three advantages of a crisis. And when we think of advantages in crisis, they almost seem like an oxymoron there, because how can there be an advantage in the middle of a crisis? But, maybe you've heard the expression, the silver lining in the gray cloud,
Yeah.
right? That there's always a plus side or a better side or a different perspective to have in the middle of crisis. So these three things are: changes the balance of risk and reward when the status quo is broken, right? There's almost no downside to taking a chance on something new. By the way, you can check out our mastermind on this subject from last week on our website at realleadershipcompany.com. But also, we're doing another mastermind on Saturdays called Put Your Dream to the Test. And so we've been talking about this very thing, that we have some great opportunity now to seize our dream, if you will. We have a great opportunity. It's sad that, for instance, I read that about 11% of restaurants will never reopen. Okay, and while that's sad and that's a terrible thing for those folks, the entrepreneurs that want to start a restaurant have a turnkey situation set up for them where they can walk into an existing restaurant and take over that company. So there's lots of advantages here that everyone has, but there's risk and reward. Number two, increases focus, right? The advantages of crisis, it increases focus. Crisis enables people to eliminate distraction and push forward to a common goal. And three, identifies leaders, right? Will the leader please stand up, right? And this is where it comes, right? So we're either going to sit back and we're going to say, oh, woe is me, or we're going to dive in and say, okay, what can I do? We need to get through to the other side. And especially if we have people that are following us. By the way, if you're leading and no one is following, John says you're only taking a walk. So make sure that you are having people follow you. So listen, new leaders are able to step up and lead when others are too afraid to act. Okay? So it goes on. John highlighted one area where the opportunity for innovation is unlimited: higher education, right? We can learn like never before. There's things like this mastermind here, but there's so much content out there, so many things for us to give our attention to. And hopefully we're giving our attention to things that are productive, things that will help us along. And we've got a new person joining with us tonight, James Friedman. Welcome, James. Welcome, James. So, welcome, James.
Pastor Tom, God bless you, sir.
Good to have you.
Thank
So-
you. I just got the notice.
Awesome. I'm glad you could join us. Just to recap with you real quick, this is the series that we're doing, a mastermind group with Leading Through Crisis, a teaching based on John Maxwell. And we already listened to some of the teaching. Now we're just going through this discussion here. If you let me stop sharing the screen for a second so that you can grab the participants guide that's in the chat section. Do you see that?
Hold on one second. Hello, everybody.
Hello,
Hi
sir.
there.
How are you?
Hello.
Hello.
Apparently, James is popular tonight. We got two James in the room. Two James.
James is a good name.
King James is better, but you know.
I'll take the king.
I read the New King James.
Right.
I got the chat open. I just don't see anything. So, but please just continue because I know we'll be seeing each other anyway. So,
Yes. I'm going to share it with you
okay.
anyway because I want you to have it. And there you go. It should be popping up in a second here. And I just want you to be able to grab that, and then I'll continue on. I have it on the screen, but I want you to have it in your hands if you can
Okay, I appreciate it.
do
Thank
that. Did
There
you
you
get it?
Yep, I got it.
Okay. Let's go ahead and click and download that.
Mhm.
And I'm going to go back to sharing the screen again.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right. So when it comes to innovation, leaders never let go, let a good crisis go to waste. And again, that sounds almost morbid, right? That a crisis, that something good can come out of a crisis, right? But John was telling us that, or maybe it's another recording I heard, but he was sharing that, crisis, makes things kind of rise to the top, if you will. We had breweries making hand sanitizer, right? We have car companies making ventilators, right? And so we're finding a way in the middle of crisis to re-engineer, to innovate, to come up with things. So let's jump into this first question here for the discussion tonight. So it says, do you think the word advantages when you hear the word crisis? So we've kind of hit on that, but what do you guys think about that? When you hear the word advantages in crisis.
Well,
Oh, go ahead, sir.
no, please, sir.
The word advantage wasn't particularly something that was in the forefront of my brain. And I went through a little time of discombobulation. And then I found myself working on a project for future ministry, recording, videotaping. I know it's not new, but for me, doing videotaping and recording and doing all these things to reach people, learning how to use YouTube and live streaming and all this stuff, I've been putting so many hours in. My wife, she's like, "What are you doing over there?" And I'm like, "I'm just listening to YouTube things, and I'm taking advantage of this time." But I wasn't thinking of the word that I'm taking advantage of this time, and so this kind of helps me, say I confirm what I'm doing. And then my boys and my family and I were all taking more personal devotional time together, which should have been going on in the first place. But this opened up, hey, we should be doing this. So anyway, that's my thought.
Great. Thanks for sharing. Anybody else?
Tom, I can echo that same thing. It's like I've been wanting to, I've been thinking about getting involved in doing Zoom. So it's really stretched me, and so I've taken advantage of this time and the situation. And I think I've done no less than 4 Zoom meetings, a Zoom board meeting, a Zoom meeting for our church online, having fun and fellowship that way. And it's really helped, bring together our congregation. So that's one way I've to kind of take advantage of the situation, make it work for you. And I think we're getting to know one another even more, just by connecting, through Zoom, So anyway, that's how I've taken advantage of it, definitely.
Great, great. Hey, Michael, do you have a fan on or something in your room?
The heater just came on in the house.
Well, do me a favor and mute your mic when you're not speaking.
Okay, yeah, because that's the only noise I hear other than the occasional car passing by.
Yeah, there's some kind of fan noise or something. It's not happening right now, actually.
Oh,
It
interesting.
actually stopped, but
Okay.
yeah, it was making others, their voices kind of cut out. So, okay, James Freeman, did you have something to share on that?
Oh, no, I think everybody kind of echoed it. Was just through the midst of this crisis, taking advantage of the internet, social media a little bit more, doing some things that I have been wanting to do anyway. Pastoring two churches can get somewhat physically taxing, but I know one of the things, I'll just share this really, really briefly, is my 11 o'clock Bible study from 11 to 12 p.m. Noon does very, very well, but I was struggling with the 6:30 evening Bible study. So this kind of forced my hand to do what I should have been doing in the first place, which is I started an online Bible study. And what's been absolutely amazing is the amount of people that have now jumped on board with the 6:30 p.m. online Bible study, to the degree that I'm going to keep that going. And already our church secretary from the one church is called, and we've had two people from across the nation that has actually sent in letters just saying how much they're enjoying it, along with a check. So that's just a blessing from the Lord by being obedient in this crisis, kind of forcing me to be. I'm grateful God for God's grace, because God had been telling me to do that anyway, and I just was slow doing it. And, this
Awesome.
forced it.
Awesome. Very, very good to hear. And, I think with the internet, I think ministries such as yourself and others have been kind of forced to consider something like this, and forced also to consider online giving even, because, people are kind of trapped in their home and need a way to give. So
You and I talked about that.
Yeah. So we're finding that out, aren't we? So there's some advantages in some of these things, some of these tools that we're using right now with Zoom, or with online learning, or with using digital giving, or whatever the case may be, will be things that we can use and carry on with us even after this crisis is over.
Yeah.
So there are that silver lining in the gray cloud, so to speak.
Well, for me, it may be nitpicking or just semantics. I don't think of the word advantage. I think of it as opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Good point.
So I have now the opportunity to develop some online courses that I've been wanting to do anyway.
Amen.
I have the opportunity to do a few other things. Now, you could say I'm taking advantage of a situation, but again, I just see that as an opportunity. Like, this is a great opportunity for people like me that want to offer some online learning, to be able to point out that you can do that no matter what's going on in the outside world. Even if
That's right.
Even if you quarantined in your house, you can take my course online and learn.
Right.
Michael,
Right.
I like that word
And
opportunity.
go ahead. Yes.
I was just telling Michael, I like that word opportunity.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's really good. It's certainly an opportunity, and we can see this as an opportunity. I think that, as I mentioned, the brewery company saw this as an opportunity to make hand sanitizer and so forth. So companies are, just stepping up to the plate, not just closing their doors and saying forget about it. Bert Koppel and I, who run the Real Leadership Company, we have podcasts, and we've been interviewing some restaurant owners. One in Ohio, another one in Florida, and another one in Erie, Pennsylvania. And each of them have a little different scenario going on. One had to close his doors. Another one is seeing business go through the roof. So we're just seeing some different things, and I think it just depends on your perspective and also what you're able to do. And by the way, the gentleman who had to close his doors temporarily is doing some things behind the scenes to keep finances rolling in and to keep his business steady until he's able to open the doors again. So there's lots of opportunities, as Michael said, for us, and we just got to take advantage of that, and especially when we're home, right? How many people are sitting at home right now watching Netflix instead of doing something that they could be, helping themselves to grow?
Yeah, too many.
Right?
Too many.
Absolutely. Too many. Let's go on to number 2. Do you agree with John that there are advantages to be found within a crisis?
Yep.
Yes.
And why?
Well, there was a time many years ago, I had the opportunity to go to a foreign mission field in Guatemala, and I was torn. I was 19, and the gentleman basically just sat across the table and he says, look, God's not going to love you any less if you stay home or if you go. He's not going to love you more if you go. The thing of it is that if you do go, you're going to step out of your comfort zone. You're going to be eating food that you've never eaten before. You're going to smell, sights. Everything's going to be different. And then there's spiritual things that are going to be so different. And he says, and if you go and submit yourself to the work of the Lord, you will receive God in ways you've never have, because you're depending on him in ways you've never depended on him before. If you stay, you'll lose out on some of those things, but that doesn't change the fact that God loves you. And I was, not to pat my own back, I was courageous enough to say, I'm going. Spent 6 months at 19 years old working with orphanages and doing rural Sunday school, sidewalk Sunday school type things. And, I had more culture shock coming back than I did going down. And it really impacted my life. And that is what I see with these things. I know this is not the only time this is going to happen to us. We're in that age now where these things will increase, and we just have to step up to the plate.
That's good. Thanks for sharing. And you said you were overseas for 6 months?
I was in Guatemala, Central America, and then I was also in Russia as well with another group.
Wow. Very cool. Anybody else?
Well, one of the things that I see as an advantage or an opportunity, within a crisis is your preaching and your messages and your ministry to, your flock or the people around you, because, people look to leaders to have the word and the answers, for what's really going on, so it kind of forced me to, really search the scriptures and pray and say, okay, what's going on, and I've done several series on, the COVID-19 and in different ways. So, I saw an opportunity in that, just minister to people. What does God say about this, you see? And so, I guess I stepped out into a new realm of, preaching on something I've never done before, and it's been really well received. So, yep.
Very good. Very good. You know, and think about this too. Here's challenging thing for pastors is that you know, in the middle of a crisis, the doors of the church should be open,
Yeah, right.
but they're closed, and so you know you got to come up with a different way to minister to people. Anybody
Yeah.
else? All right. Okay, so let's jump down to number 3. So, how do you see a crisis changing the calculation of risk versus reward propositions? How do you see it, the crisis changing the calculation of risk or reward? So, when you think about your company, when you think about your church, when you think about whatever that thing is that you're doing, when we're not in the middle of a crisis, we calculate risk or reward based on what we do, right? We're going to take a chance on this, right? And we're going to see that that this is going to do something for us, or we ask ourselves, what's the risk versus reward in this thing that we do? Now, being in the middle of a crisis, listen, I don't care what church you have, the doors of the church, for the most part, have been closed. So we have to think about this whole thing, the calculation of risk versus reward. There's a lot of people that didn't want to do online church, for instance, because they were afraid that their people would just stay home and not come to church, to the building. So risk versus reward says, I'm not going to have an online church, right? Because of that. Now we're in a situation where people have to find out how to live stream to have any connection with their church. So the crisis changing the calculation of risk versus reward. If we go back to question, I think it was in number 1, or maybe it's just something we read up and above here. It's just saying that, you know, we're in the middle of a crisis, no matter how you look at it. So this is all affecting us. It doesn't matter who you are. You're being forced to consider something different. So think about those who have never really done online shopping, but now they're considering doing online shopping because they don't want to go out and get in the public, right? So that's that. Again, that's that calculation of risk versus reward. Some people are afraid to do things online, like donating or whatever the case may be, because they're afraid that the money, excuse me, their credit card is going to be stolen. Their numbers are going to be stolen, right? Or any number of things. So again, how do you see a crisis changing the calculation of risk versus reward? Anybody got something to chime on that since I explained it a little bit?
Yeah, it eliminates complacency, or it reduces complacency. You know, when things are going well, it's like, well, I don't know, we're doing really good. Why should we take a chance on something that might not work and might cost us a lot of money? Now,
that's great.
You change or you go out of business.
That's awesome. Great perspective, Michael.
Yeah, thank you. That's just it. Why? And I've worked at companies that were like that. We want to grow the business. We want to go from this amount of revenue to this amount of revenue. And I would ask, how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to increase sales. Well, we have a limited marketplace. How are we going to do that unless we expand our product line? Oh, no, we don't do that. These are the products we do. That's it. Okay, so explain to me how we're going to double our revenue in a decrease when we got a small market to begin with, and it's a decreasing share of automotive. In this case, it was automotive. So I was eventually asked to leave. I was eventually invited to leave because I was asking questions that nobody wanted to address.
You're not alone. You're not alone, Michael.
Yeah. I know that to be the case, and it's unfortunate, but that's the way things are.
That's good. That's a good perspective. Again, the brewery company selling alcohol, that's what they did. That's what they do. But they're not selling a lot of alcohol right now. There's very few places selling alcohol. So, and I'm talking about the drinking kind. So now they've converted it so that they're selling hand sanitizer, right? So they've made just something like you just said, Michael. They've said, you know what? If we shut the doors, we're not making any money. We're not helping any of our employees. And think about this, guys. Churches included. Listen, we don't know when this thing is going to get over with. I suspect that on Friday, our governor here in Michigan is going to say we're going to extend this out a few more weeks. I would not be surprised. She's kind of hinted around of that. But even after the crisis has been lifted, or excuse me, the economy is beginning to turn on again, how many people are going to rush to the church to start congregating? I think it's going to be a trickle type of effect. And it's going to be a slow process with people coming back to the church until they know that all is clear, right? Anybody else on this number 3 here?
I just say that I've heard from our people that they want to come back so bad, because we have great fellowship, and so it's just been different, for them to not be able to. As a matter of fact, we had some get really offended that we closed the doors, and so they were bringing their tithe up there and driving in, and our board just made a decision to close down services and go online. So I think they'll come back pretty good.
Yeah, I echo that. I just been getting Facebook messaging, even putting it out on their personal page. I miss being with my church family. I can't wait till we can all get back together. I think the absence makes the heart grow fonder sometimes, especially if it's true relationships, and healthy relationships. People are they miss you and they want to be there. Of course, it's not true for everyone, but
yeah, that's good. Anybody else? James Freeman, did you have something to share on that?
No, I've been enjoying what everybody's been saying. I've always felt risk was, if you don't do anything, there's a risk to it. If you do something, there's a risk to it. So I call risk faith. Just as long as God is fine with it, then if He tells me to jump into the pool, I'm jumping.
I understand what you mean about the fellowship, but it's just the lack of human contact.
Yeah.
The online is great, okay, and I there's a place for it. To not have that, but I saw a posting on, where was that? I think it was on Facebook. What's the first thing you're going to do after the quarantine is lifted? And my immediate response, like, boom, that quick, type in, I'm going to go hug some friends.
Yeah.
It's just.
And Michael, you bring out a good point, and that's something I had to really pray about, because I've been doing this for 31 years, so I'm still old school. My kids just got me a smartphone, and so I had to get rid of my dumb one. The one benefit that's been such a blessing to me is, and I agree with you, Michael, 100%. That physical connection is just so key, and which is one of the hubs of the blessings of the church, the house congregation, I should say. But the one thing that I'm getting, and I'm always kicking myself now for not doing this earlier, is the people that are now coming on board that I would have never been in contact with from across the country. Veterans, active military, and just people that by word of mouth that I would have never reached. That's one of the reasons why we're going to keep the one of the online services going on Saturday, and our 6:30 Bible studies I was just saying, because we've just reached so many people, and the offering part, I didn't even think about that. That was just an extra blessing that people wanted to give. So we're gonna just keep it going, just because of the greater outreach that we have right now. Plus, I'm getting a lot of the millennials. That's now they're coming on board online, but it was like pulling teeth to get them into the building. So for some reason, they're more comfortable with, I guess, pulling up an app on the phone or whatever. But and I'm hoping by the preaching the word of God that's planting seeds, and hopefully motivating them to, be it here in Michigan or wherever they're online at, to join the church. Because during the altar call that I do every online service, I'm encouraging them. If you're in Michigan, come see me. But if they're in another state, you find a Bible-believing church with a pastor that's going to love and support you and pray for you and tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. So
yeah,
that has been an encouragement for me to continue on with that.
I'm glad you mentioned that, what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. I had an instance several years ago. I had a lot of stuff going on, and I was doing a fair amount of business traveling then. And they had at the time, this is when Northwest was still around, they had, right after you go through security, go up a flight of stairs, what they call it, a meditation room.
Mm-hmm.
And I says, oh, okay, if nothing else, I need a couple of minutes to just de-stress a little bit. I sat down, my feet down on the floor, my hands in my lap, put my head back, and I asked God a question. And I got the answer I needed, not what I wanted.
Mm.
And I can't even tell you how I knew I had the answer. It wasn't like a voice that I heard. It was there. I don't know how. I can't explain it.
Amen.
But it was there, and it was what I needed to hear, not what I wanted to hear.
Good.
Yeah, and I have never shared what exactly that was. That's between me and God.
Praise God.
Well, thank you for sharing that moment with us. Getting back to this idea of the calculation of risk versus reward, last August, my brother-in-law and I went to be certified as John Maxwell team coaches and trainers and speakers. And it was about 3,000 people there in that event. Well, they were having another event in March of this year. And they decided that it would be at their best interest to cancel that event because of everything that's going on with the coronavirus. And this is when everything was just kind of starting to shut down voluntarily. And they made that decision to do that. And then John decided to do this teaching of leading through crisis. And this series he did of leading through crisis reached over 500,000 people. So instead of 3,000 leaders, they were impacting hundreds of thousands of leaders. So it was that risk versus reward, right? They knew that they needed to shut that down for the sake of the health of everyone, thinking of everyone else. But there was so much more benefit on the other side of the coin. I talked to my uncle yesterday. He told me that their church takes in about $50,000 a week in offerings, right? They have a couple thousand or so people at their church. Um, when they decided to go online because of all of this, their first week was about 40,000. He says, but the second week was 60, and the second week and the third week after that was 70,000. And so it was a benefit. It's worked in their favor. Now, at the church I attend, it hasn't worked in that quite of capacity. But still, it's that risk versus reward. And here we are, we're forced, right? And again, this is kind of going with what Michael and James said, that we have to tell people what they need to hear, not what they want to hear, because we are where we are. So we can't say, you know what, I'm going to do it the way I used to do it, because you can't do it the way you used to do it. No one is doing it like they used to do it.
Right.
The movie industry is shut down. If you watch the news, you see that they're, using, pop cans and popsicle sticks, to do the news. I mean, they're just, everyone is figuring out what to do in the situation that we're in. And that's the way it is. Number 4, let's look at this. Why do you think some people are willing to abandon the status quo during a crisis?
Survival.
Oh, go ahead, sir.
That's
No,
it.
go ahead.
That's the key word right there, isn't it? Everyone write that down. Survival.
Survival.
Well, I'm one of those guys that I don't like the living room to stay the same for so long. So I'd like to change the change of status quo because I get bored. I want something different. I need something new. But not everybody's like that, Yeah, I also have points of being a creature of habit in some areas, and it's like rubbing the cat's hair backwards when the status quo changes. But in this case, it revs me up. It gets me going. I'm like a steam rolling engine, ready to go, and I don't really know who and what is going to be able to stop. Especially when the quarantine's gone, I'm going to be free. So here we go.
Yeah, and I do agree with you, but I have unfortunately known too many people, some of them relatives, and I make a distinction between family and relative. Okay. My ex hated that when I used to say that. But anyhow, where it was always, well, we need to have things to improve. You need to have a better life, yada, yada, yada. But don't change anything. Yeah. We want it to be better, but don't change anything. I want to improve things to improve, but don't change anything.
Is that like the definition of insanity?
Right.
Yeah. And there are, unfortunately, many people like that. Say that I want things to get better, but I don't want to change anything that I'm doing. Because that'll make me feel uncomfortable. But I want my situation to improve.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but those two don't go together.
That's so true. So true. Nick, you had something?
Yeah. This question reminds me of another way that I've had to change and kind of like abandon the status quo. For example, we have a Wednesday night service, right? And part of the service, we take prayer requests, we pray and that way, so now we can't meet, right? And so, you guys take note of this, what I'm going to tell you right here, just because I'm so impressed with it. It's called Flock Note. Okay. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's like free for your first 40 people or something like that. And so what they do is, they send out for you free texts and email, And so I got everybody in our church to sign up on this. I mean, we got about 50 people, right? So, and it's just worked great, because, I'll send out a quick text to everybody and it goes right to their smartphone. Hey, if you've got prayer requests or a praise report, send it back to me and, we'll agree with you in prayer tonight online. And you guys, I'm just amazed at how many people. We used to just get, a few people give a request. Now everybody's like texting and emailing back, pray for this person, pray for that person. Yeah, here's a praise report. So, and I've been able to take those, and because I do this presentation online like we're doing here on Zoom, or I use Ecamm, live through YouTube. You can put those prayer requests right out there and go one by one, and through your presentation, and have people pray with you. So, I mean, that is like a total new thing, man, of leaving the status quo to, prayer requests by email, ahead of time. So, I mean, Flocknote, check it out. You'll love it. It's great.
That's awesome. Thanks for that resource.
Yeah, man.
Anybody else? Okay, so certainly we're finding new things. We're discovering things that we wouldn't have discovered otherwise because we're in the middle of a crisis, right? All right, number 5 here. Why do you think some people are focused on defending the status quo during a crisis? And Michael was just kind of hitting on that.
Yeah.
Comfort zone.
Comfort zone. Another key word tonight. Comfort zone.
Yeah,
and
don't like change.
What's that, Nick?
People don't like change. A lot of people don't like change.
You're right. They don't.
Yeah.
And think about this too. The old guy and maybe his wife, goes to the diner up the street, and they have breakfast there every morning, and they read the paper and do this and that. Well, they've not been able to do that. And then what if that restaurant doesn't survive? That whole routine, that whole date, if you will, of going to that site is gone, right? It can't come back again. And so we're forced to either go with the flow or die trying, right? So
I think they either work out their interpersonal relationships at home or other. I mean, it brings a whole new set of pressures on people. Oh, now I got to sit down and look at you, across the table.
Right.
It's been great for us though. It's been a good experience being home.
Good. Well, on that note of being home, thankfully it's been great for you. It's been great for me, but there's domestic violence is risen.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Right.
Oh,
yeah. And that's going through the roof, literally. So there's a lot of craziness going on, and especially, and here's the other thing to think about. John shared the story about being on an airplane, and you want to know if you're going to be connecting to another flight, you want to know if that flight's going to be there on time, or if it's going to be canceled. Even if you know that it's going to be canceled, at least right? It's that unknown that we all deal with. It's that unknown. We don't know, as John said just a moment ago, we don't know. He doesn't know when this thing's going to be over with. We don't know when it's going to be over with. We can assume because they kind of put a date on the calendar, at least here in Michigan, of the 30th of April, but it could supersede that. And we just don't know. And they're talking about, maybe a second wave, or maybe even that second wave coming later on in the year. But still, things are going to be different no matter how you look at this. We're not going back to the way it used to be. The way it used to be is gone. And so we've got to be creative on how we can move forward with technology and everything that's been put at our feet to make a difference moving forward, to innovate moving forward. Does that sound good?
Yeah. I like what James Friedman said, that he's got such a good response from an online Bible study that, he's going to keep going. Amen, James. You really inspired me and gave me an idea there, because we have Sunday and Wednesday services, but, that just kind of sparked my thinking again when you said you've got an online Bible study where it's just for that, and you really are able to connect with a lot of people. I got a friend of mine who's pastoring a church up in Tecumseh, Michigan, and I think on his best Sunday, he'd have 40 people there, and he told me that he's got over 500 people now watching him online through all of his Facebook connections through Facebook Live, and he got surprised by some substantial offerings, being sent to him, and I helped him set up his PayPal, on his website and everything. So he was like happy.
I got a comment. One of the things that with pastor in this community here in Lapeer said, and it's been something that I've been taking to heart, is, I don't mean to downplay the numbers on Facebook. Okay. That's not, but he said, but the challenge of discipleship now is more important. It's more intricate than it ever has been, because how do we follow up? How do we touch base? How do we confirm? And that's that. Talking about challenge, and I know we're on question 5, but I think that's going to be our hardest part, is how are we actually going to do true discipleship? Because the screen that we see now is it's just like an evangelistic type thing, and people just tune in and tune out, and you go to the next one. Hundreds of thousands of people are doing this now, more so than ever. And so, I find the letter writing, the personal texting, the phone calls, I don't know if I just said letters, but writing letters in pen and not just typing it, just making people know how much you truly care and trying to find ways to hear them and communicate. And when you have large numbers, how do you do that?
That's a good question. But see, we didn't have this question prior to this crisis.
Exactly. No, I know. And one of the things that I was thinking of when you guys were talking is that the unknown and this crisis is like the refiner's fire. When you have impurities in the metal or precious elements that you're heating up, leave and come to the top. We're faced, whether we're Christians or not, we're faced with what's in us, what is coming to the top. Domestic violence is increased. It's coming to the top. Whatever the topic is, it's coming to the top, and either we let it sit there or we get it out. And so defending the status quo, that's the big challenge. Is, are we going to just let things pile up because I don't like what's going on? Or are we going to skim the top here and get rid of and allow that fire to burn out the dross and get it out of our lives? And that's, again, it follows back to discipleship. I'm going to stop now. Talked a lot.
That's good. Go ahead, Michael.
One thing, and all of the emotional, mental, spiritual, it's all true. People are being isolated. If they've got a spouse and or children, they're not used to being with them 24/7. But what I was thinking about, I grew up in New York City, and the subways, even in the best of times, are a petri dish of germs.
Mm-hmm.
And, what's the alternative to that for commuting into Manhattan, where there are so many jobs? Unless somebody quick comes up with a transporter like on Star Trek. What we get, because this is not an exaggeration. but there were times when I was growing up and taking the subway where it felt so crowded. I swear, if somebody had a heart attack and died, God forbid, they'd never fall down.
Wow.
I mean, that is pretty crowded. And what alternative are we going to have for situations like that? Because New York's not the only city like that. I just bring that one up because that's where I grew up. But what are we going? How are people going to still have that? Be able to have that social interaction and meet with other people in cities where the best means of getting around are public transport.
Well, that's a good point you bring up, Michael, and I hope that people are forward thinking in that regard. You know, that we are in our churches and so forth. You know, I just saw just the other day that maybe that same company that I sent you a link to, Michael, that first link, I think that maybe they're selling the, you know, the hand sanitizer station, right? That you see some Meyer or something when you walk in. Maybe we consider those for our churches or places of business. But, you know, we got to be thinking forward because the people still want to feel safe when they're coming into an environment. And so if we can do things like providing a sanitation station or something along those lines, some wipes or something to make people feel a little more protected, then, you know, we're helping that process along. But if we just go like, you know, nothing's happening, we're going to do things like we've always done it, you know, I don't think it's going to work out. And go ahead.
And I just don't understand. And my now ex, when we for a few years after marriage, we did live in New York, and she was amazed during the winter at the temperature differential between on the street and in the subway car. That was just all from body heat. You know, it might be 20 degrees outside and 120 in the subway car.
Wow.
So that gives you an impression of how much people are stuck together and how simple it would be to transmit something, intentionally or not. Hopefully not.
Yeah, hopefully. You know, just today, I just canceled my wife and I's flights to Florida and got a refund today. We were trying to hold out as long as we could to see if things would turn around. And we were supposed to fly out on the 27th, just about 3 days. And we have been doing some research in the background of finding out what the flight would be like. And from what I saw and what I've read is that they are staggering the passengers on the airline. So that means they're losing seats, you know, just to do social distancing as far as the airplane goes. And they're going to probably have to do this for quite a while, at least for let's say they lift the quarantine tomorrow. It's probably going to be 30, 60, 90 days until maybe travel gets a little back to the way it used to be. But they're really going to have to consider something different in the meantime. So, yeah.
It's a whole different scenario that we're going to be facing in the future.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So let's jump on the number 6 really quick.
Pastor Tom, can I jump in real quick?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I just sent to everybody a chat. I have another conference call to make.
Oh yeah.
But I want to thank everybody. Thank you for sending me the invitation, letting me come on board. It's such a blessing meeting everybody. And thank you. Pastor Tom, please let me know as you continue to do these.
Yeah, we're going to be doing this next week at the same time.
Okay, if you could send me a reminder, that way I won't, because like I said, I just got your message and I want to jump on. because I love you, brother, and I really appreciate what you're doing. John Maxwell is one of my favorites. So
Awesome.
I definitely want to be part of this. So
Thanks.
God bless you, brothers. You brothers stay safe. Pray for me in my church. One of the churches, I had one family, and they've lost two individuals. One young lady lost her daughter, who was not even 30 years old yet, to COVID-19. So I've been dealing with that all day. So keep them in your prayers. And thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Okay, thank you.
sir.
God bless.
God bless you guys.
Great input from James there. Okay, so let's. I think we got time for maybe two more questions here, but if not, we'll end it soon. My phone is acting up. Okay, number 6. There, are you more likely? Well, let's move on from that one. Okay, so number 7. Let's look at that. What circumstances do you see within a crisis that allow for new leaders to emerge? I think that's good right there.
I think we are in more of need of leaders to rise up that can handle or be dispersed to do more. I don't mean to beat this discipleship theme, but I think more because of the amount of people that we're going to be, that some of us are seeing, hundreds, thousands watching, we're going to have to disseminate and grow leaders to reach out to these people in ways that, because we can't do it physically as much as we're going to use, and more of the stuff's going to come. Maybe not disease, maybe not corona, but in this time frame, I think there are people that would probably not have the opportunity because of the demand. The harvest is so ready, more so now than ever, and I believe they're just going to come out of the woodworks, and there's going to be a lot of smaller groups getting in touch with one another, and these people are going to need shepherds and mentoring, and there you go.
Yeah.
I think
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tom.
No, go ahead, Mike.
So I think it's a matter of who is willing to step up and take the lead.
Yep.
And actually, that reminded me of something. And I don't pretend to be a biblical scholar, but we all know the Exodus story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And there's one part in there where it talks about Moses observing one of the overseers beating one of the Hebrew slaves. And this is before he found out that he's not Egyptian, that he actually is Hebrew. And it's commonly been translated as he looked this way and that way, and seeing nobody else, he killed the overseer. Well, that gives the impression of, well, he wanted to make sure nobody would see him, nobody would witness it. But several people that I know who know a whole lot more about the Hebrew Bible than I do, and have read it in the original Aramaic, said that's a misinterpretation. That phrase can be and should be interpreted as Moses looked this way and that way and seeing no other leader
Oh, that's good.
decided to take action.
What a perspective.
We don't know, interpreting it that way, we don't know whether there was anybody there or not. We know that he saw that nobody else was going to do anything, and if it was going to be done, he had to do it.
That's good. That's a good point there. I'm thinking that there's going to be some young leaders rising up because there's going to be a lot of the older leaders, and which are more seasoned to lead, but they're going to be stuck in their status quo. And the young people are going to be coming up saying, well, here's an opportunity. We're just going to go for it. We're just going to jump in like Moses, as you just mentioned, as he did. You know, we're just going to see that something needs to be done and do it. You know, whereas the more seasoned leader says, well, you know, we've got to take this approach and we've got to go at it this way and we've got to do it, you know, in this timing, and someone else is just doing it because they don't have all of those, perhaps the education of real life scenario. But beside the point, listen, there's no playbook for what we're experiencing right now.
Right.
You know, we've never gone through this in our lifetime. I don't think we have. And so we're experiencing something brand new, and everyone's adjusting and navigating through it. You know, the president is navigating through this. Our governors are navigating through this, you know, kind of on a day-by-day basis. And we're navigating through it on a day-by-day basis. So we just need to continue to be doing and doing and doing. I want to wrap up with this one last question here before we close. And it's, is this one that, or did I miss it?
7 or 8. That's
number 8. I wanted 8, but am I missing something here? Oh, yes, I see what I did. Okay, yeah, so number 8 here. John mentioned opportunities for innovation in higher education, but what other kinds of innovation opportunities do you see within the COVID-19 crisis? What other innovations? We've kind of hit on this already, but let's talk about that really quick as we wrap up.
Well, I saw a couple of blurbs on the news that stated that a lot of companies that are now been forced to allow employees to work from home, and they had not done previously because they thought they were going to get hit with a reduction in productivity, have actually found that productivity has stayed the same or increased.
Yep.
So there might be a whole lot more people working remotely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Something else that John said, you know, that people are going to find that working from home, it's going to be less money on the companies. Think about the company that had a 30,000 square foot building. Now they can scale down to maybe a 6,000 square foot building and have everybody work from home.
Exactly.
You know, and save money. Save money on the environment of the building. I mean, there's so much money spent on the HR department in the building, you know, handling, you know, safety and protocol and all those kinds of things. You know, perhaps that's going to change. Absolutely. Anybody else?
Yeah, I see an opportunity, you know, to minister to first responders, nurses, anybody in the medical field, you know, people that have been going through this crisis, you know, are probably going to be more receptive right now to, you know, people saying, you know, hey, we're going to be praying for you. Let's get some meals going for you. What can we do for you? You know, a lot of people are jumping up and stepping up and being very innovative in trying to connect with our first responders and people like that, you know, so there's so many ways that, you know, we could be innovative here. You know, you just need to pray. I think just hear the Lord, you know, because there's so many things we can do. You know, it's just hearing the Lord.
I can't help but think about our vets. I did not serve. I have distant relatives that have and grandparents that have, but so I don't know what it's like to be in the military, but every time I see these coffee places saying we want to give a free coffee to our
right on
frontliners, our healthcare people, and I appreciate that. This is not a down or a dig against healthcare or any of the frontline people that we're calling frontline people right now. But what about, but I keep thinking the veterans, well, we've done the same thing. We've put life and limb and family online for this entire country, but they haven't gotten the same response as we're giving to the healthcare. And it's almost like, man, if we go in with an apology, I am so sorry, whether we apologize or not, but we put our attention, that's another area of focus, because, now we see firsthand what you may have gone through over there because we're seeing it here.
Yeah, that's good.
And we can relate to you. And I'm sorry that I didn't relate to you before because I had no clue. Mm-hmm. Out of sight, out of mind.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah,
that's
totally.
Very good.
I say totally, absolutely agree. And I'll tell you, I have been a defense contractor from time to time. And when I've spoken with some of these that they're still on active duty, but they've had been deployed, and heard about what they've gone through, at some point, it just occurred to me that I got to do this. And I see somebody in uniform, I will make a point to walk up to them and say, thank you for your service. I appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah.
And even if it's a veteran, an older guy like me, and it's true what you say, that they don't get that. It's like you made their day. It was just that little simple thing of thank you for your service. I appreciate it. Yeah. It costs nothing but a couple of seconds of your time. And they just, I'd say 99 times out of 100, they just light up.
Yeah, I've seen that. I'm very intuitive to make sure our military branches know when I see them how grateful I am, because we have a freedom. Even in this crisis, we have freedom, like most countries don't. Right. But no, I just saw that as a ministry opportunity to really say, I understand more now what you had to go through, and it makes me appreciate you even more. And that right there, that I'm not saying to say it like that, whatever, that's a good ministry focus. It can awaken that.
Right on. I think that things like this, things like the military, things like the first responders or those who in the medical field who are putting themselves at risk, and even the president's been calling them. He says, you watch them marching into these hospitals, they look like they're going into battle, he says. So we're going to see a lot of this, and perhaps a lot of people are going to be considering people we've taken for granted in the past. And so I think that's a lot of that's going to come out of this. Well, listen, guys, we've come to the end of our discussion here. And so I just want to invite you, if you're interested, to visit us again next week. We'll be continuing on another week on this, on leading through crisis. And I encourage you to invite others to join us. And for more information on what we do, you can visit realleadershipcompany.com, where you can see last week's mastermind on the subject. And then you're also invited to join us on Saturday. We're doing a mastermind on Put Your Dream to the Test, Dreaming Through Adversity. So that's going to be happening at 10 a.m. Again, you can go to our website at realleadershipcompany.com for more information on that. But it's so great to have you all. It's such an awesome discussion. Thank you all for being a part.
Yeah, thanks, Tom.
Take care.
Really good, man.
Yeah. Thank you for holding this. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Nice meeting you guys.
Nice meeting you guys.
Yeah, okay. Bye.
Take care.